Good morning, guys. It's Nick off from the PS. I hope you're all well. I say that, and I really do hope you're well. I say that having read the news. I read the news this morning, my time over in Asia, but you guys in the Western world will just be starting to wake up in Europe now, and perhaps the US not quite. But it was a surprise to me. It was a disheartening surprise, let's be really honest, but it was a surprise to me to read the news this morning to a degree. Not a full surprise, to be absolutely honest. But many of you will be just waking up to the news that the SEC have indeed decided to appeal the ruling on the XRP Ripple case, which is a kick in the nuts. Let's not sugarcoat it. Probably not as big a kick in the nuts as you think, though, and I hope to bring a little bit of optimism. Rather than what I've been seeing on social media this morning, which is an awful lot of doom and gloom, and I need to sell, I can't afford to wait any longer. And I sympathise, guys, I really do. Um, I understand there's a significant number of people who have been in negative territory for quite a long time, and as a result of this lawsuit, and probably needed this bull run to go swimmingly. So I do sympathise, but it's not all doom and gloom, and I'll get into that, and hopefully you'll take some solace from that. So I mean, you can probably see here there's a lot more going on in terms of transactions of XRP right now around the world. Unfortunately, I think that is some people panicking and selling as opposed to people buying. Hopefully, it's not. Hopefully, there's a lot of people buying as well. Personally, I bought some. The price dipped down. I bought a bit more. But again, I hope rather than believe that it's people buying as opposed to selling. I think a lot of people have had to sell a little bit. You can see the price here. So 53 point or 0.5334 on XRP right now. That is down. In the last hour, it's not much of a difference, but over the last 24 hours, that's 11.31% down. Kicking the nuts, no two ways about it. 11% is a bad loss in the day. But actually, it was already down at about 54 cents, about 56 cents, I think. So a lot of the downtrend that happened before this news, it had come from what's going on in Israel and Iran, possibly a little bit of a backwash from that dockyard strike, dock worker strike. Um, Japan's not in a good state as well. Japan's been hemorrhaging a little bit this week. So it's not just this news that's crashed the market. In fact, I don't think the market has responded as badly as I believed it would yet. But the day is young, so let's see. But if it does, still not the worst thing in the world, unless you're the unfortunate ones that sell out at a huge loss. I'm hoping you take some confidence in what I say and choose not to. But in the same respect, I do understand for some people, just to be told you might have to wait 6, 12 months longer to see profits on this investment might be enough to push some people out of the door. I get it. Before we get into today's video, guys, just to say, most of you know me by now. My name's Nick. I am, in fact, a financial advisor, but I'm absolutely not your financial advisor. So anything I say or do in today's video should not be taken as financial advice in any way or form. I'm just a guy sharing my opinion, sharing my thoughts on the internet in the hope it takes some value. So getting back to the video, so where we do stand then is we are aware that this has happened now. Let's jump on and take a look. This is a tweet from our friend James K. Phelan. He's a lawyer in the US if you don't know him. Very, very successful, very, very well known in the community, but you may not have come across him. And very, very simply put, breaking, the SEC has filed a notice of appeal of Judge Torres's ruling. Now that's quite vague, his tweet. And there's a reason for that. That's because if you look down here, this is actually the notice of appeal of the ruling. And it says, Notice of Appeal to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. Please take notice that Plaintiffs' Securities and Exchange Commission hereby respectfully appeals to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit from the final judgment entered by this court on August the 7th, 2024. And that's all it says. It doesn't say which piece of the ruling they want to appeal. It doesn't say anything at all. In fact, it just purely says the final judgment entered by this court on August the 7th. And so the final judgment technically relates to the whole of the case ongoing. So it could be any part that they're appealing right now. We can pretty much guess. So a bit of a kick in the nuts, no two ways about it. I expected them to appeal, to be perfectly honest. I don't know why I had more faith in their ethics, is probably the best word that comes to mind, than I did. But I hoped that they would come out and appeal and explain what and why. You know, if they came out and said we're appealing this part for this reason, this is why we believe it brings a negative impact to the investors of the United States who we're here to protect. I may not agree with it, but at least I'd have respect for what they were doing and I'd understand what they were doing. Right now, there's absolutely no rhyme, reason, or logic to it. There's no rhyme, reason, or logic to the initial lawsuit in the first place. I think deep down they just wanted to go, Ripple, we're gonna sue you unless you give us $200, and Ripple go, okay, so $200 million, whatever the number might have been. I don't think they expected such a fight. I think they're now disgruntled, annoyed, peeved, aggravated, pissed off that they've had egg on their face and look foolish in front of the whole world. And almost like a disgruntled ex-partner, be that business, professional, family, or whatever kind of ex-partner you want, that feels disgruntled and starts unreasonably chasing down the opposite side. It just doesn't make sense. It feels now like they're doing this out of spite, as opposed to doing this out of what's right for them, what's right for the industry, what's right for the people they're there to protect. Moving on. Let's see what Brad Garlinghouse had to say about this. So Brad came out and he said, if Gensler and the SEC were rational, they would have moved on from this case long ago. It certainly hasn't protected investors and instead has damaged the credibility and reputation of the SEC. That I agree with wholeheartedly. Let's be really honest now. You could argue that the investors have been damaged more so by this lawsuit than by Ripple. In fact, you couldn't argue that. That's almost a fact. There were no indications of anyone being out of pocket based on the actions of Ripple. The rough estimate is about 15 billion worth US of damages being brought about since the second lawsuit. So he's absolutely right on that. Somehow they still haven't got the message across. They lost on everything that matters. Ripple, the crypto industry, and the rule of law have already prevailed. While we'll fight in court for as long as we need, let's be clear. XRP's status as a non-security is the law of the land today, and that does not change even in the face of this misguided and infuriating appeal. He goes on to say, remember when the SEC tried unsuccessfully to file an interlocutory appeal? They made clear that they had no intention of challenging XRP's status as a non-security. And that's what's really important here, guys, is the simple fact of the matter is the SEC themselves came out and said they had no fault, no argument against the fact. They did not want to challenge the fact that XRP's status as a non-security had been declared. They're not arguing that XRP is suddenly a security and the judge was wrong. They're appealing something since that point. And so we'll move on to that in a moment. Ellie Terrett actually explains this a little bit better. In the notice of appeal, the SEC says August the 7th, because that's the day that everything became final judgment. They haven't explicitly stated which issues they plan to appeal yet. They could choose to appeal both the ruling on programmatic sales from July 23 and the amount the court ordered Ripple to pay on institutional sales on August the 7th, or just one and not the other. So that's where we go back to what I was saying about them being really vague. They haven't actually told anyone what they're appealing, which oozes stalling tactics to me again. It's no surprise that they had 60 days to lodge this appeal and they waited until almost the last day. We're 3 days away from the deadline. It's no surprise to me that they are dragging this out as long as they possibly can. I don't know what their agenda is, but I know they have one. And the main game of their agenda seems to be to stall XRP and Ripple's progress as much as possible. Whatever it is, I'm probably accusing them of things I shouldn't accuse them of on air, so I will retract that statement. But in the same respect, we all can see that there's something they are doing to drag this out as long as possible. I don't know, maybe the end game is just to break Ripple and get them to pay a bigger fine. I don't know. But whatever it is, they are deliberately dragging this out. But the important point here again, though, is the 2 points that Ellie Terry goes on to say is they could choose to appeal the ruling on programmatic sales from July 23 or the amount the court ordered Ripple to pay on institutional sales from August the 7th. There is absolutely no doubt that they are not challenging XRP's status as a non-security, or at least there is nothing to suggest that. Programmatic sales, if you're not familiar with the term, that is about Ripple selling XRP to third parties via exchanges. So not the institutional sales. That one's been determined to have been against securities law. That's what the fine is all about. So no one's arguing that point. They might argue the level of the fine that was applied for that breach, but no one's arguing that that was a breach. And no one is suggesting that secondary market sales are sales of securities. So you and I are in the clear. No two ways about that. So the difference between programmatic sales is when Ripple sold blindly over the exchanges to third parties. Secondary market sales are when you and I buy and sell via the exchange. So you could sell your XRP to the exchange for 53 cents now, and I could buy for 53 cents in 5 minutes' time. Those exchanges are not in any way or form being accused of being security sales. So we're absolutely in the clear. XRP itself is absolutely in the clear. No two ways about that. What now is happening is dragging on this case just to add elements of unclarity, disclarity, whatever the word would be, the opposite of clarity. We don't have the full clarity that we would like for an extra period of time now. Some investors, some retail investors will pull their investments and drop the price. It may impact the bull run to a certain degree as far as XRP and maybe even the greater industry are concerned. It's also of no surprise to me that the SEC originally brought this out just before Big Bull Run. Next time around, almost to the par, 4 years later, did it again. Again, I'm not allowed to say that they are deliberately causing damage to investors and preventing us from enjoying a bull run. But it's one hell of a coincidence that it keeps happening like this. I just can't work out what their end game is. That's the problem. Is if I knew why they were doing it, I could react to that. They don't seem to have any rhyme or reason or logic for me to then second guess what their next move will be and know how to benefit. That's where my concern comes in. Almost like, would you rather fall out in an argument with a world-class professional boxer or the local psychopath? Yeah. Now, both are going to beat me in a fight, but with a world-class professional boxer who's far more talented, I might be able to talk to him and explain and reach an agreement whereby he doesn't pummel me black and blue outside in the street. Whereas with the local psychopath, there's no ability to have that conversation. Maybe this is a bad analogy. I'm not sure where I'm going with it, but there's no ability to have that conversation because there's no rhyme or reason or logic in his mind as to why he's doing it in the first place. The professional boxer probably had a very good reason, or at least thinks he has, and you could explain your way out of it and hopefully not find yourself on the wrong end of a punch on the nose. So hopefully that makes sense. Without knowing their reasoning, it's very hard to determine what their next moves will be and react or be proactive against that. That's where I am in between a rock and a hard place on this, just like everyone else. It's very hard to know what's coming next. When they seem to act irrationally, it's hard to put rational predictions on what they're going to do, right? Moving on. So this is Stu Alderotti, who is the counsel for Ripple. The SEC's decision to appeal is disappointing but not surprising. That I agree with. I thought they would appeal as well. This just prolongs what's already a complete embarrassment for the agency. The court already rejected the SEC's suggestion that Ripple acted recklessly, and there were no allegations of fraud, and of course, there were no victims or losses. Now that, again, is really important to remember, guys. This is what makes the whole thing bizarre, going back to me saying I can't work out what they do rationally, irrationally. The whole thing doesn't make sense, right? Because essentially what we're saying here is we don't know why they did it. The court already rejected the SEC's suggestion that Ripple acted recklessly, and there were no allegations of fraud, and of course there were no victims or losses. Nobody came forward before this lawsuit and said, I've lost money because of the actions of Ripple. Not a single person. There are no allegations of fraud. There are no allegations of mistreatment of clients. Nobody complained. This is the SEC on an agenda of their own, chasing this down. Number two, instead of faithfully applying the law, this agency, under this chair, continues to engage in litigation warfare against the industry. We are evaluating whether to file a cross appeal. Either way, the SEC's lawsuit has been irrational and misguided from the start, and we're ready to prove that yet again in the appellate court, once again taking the lead for the industry. 3, coincidence that the SEC's enforcement director announced his resignation about an hour before this. So if you remember going back to the first time round, the guy in charge basically brought this and resigned and went off in a moment. It's happened again. The enforcement director announced his resignation an hour before this. That's crazy. Talk about self-preservation in every way or form. It's unbelievable that that could even be allowed to happen. Anyway, let's move on and see what a few more people have said. Fred Rispoli. So we all know Fred Rispoli as well. For the XRP holders, here is the SEC v Ripple appellate timeline. So this is telling you what he now believes is going to be the new timescale associated with this. This is an important one. He may not be right. He doesn't say he's the be all, an end all of knowledge, but he's an experienced guy in this field. So he puts, number one, SEC brief likely due December the 2nd, 24. SEC likely to seek permissible 30-day extension, so will be due shortly after 1st of January 25. Number two, Ripple will cross appeal, full stop. I think that now is a given. Ripple will cross appeal. Its opening brief will be due around the same time. 3, the opposition briefs will be due around the 2nd of February 25. Ripple will likely take its extension, taking that to 2nd of March 25. 4, reply briefs will be due by the end of March. 5, an oral argument will be scheduled for sometime September to October 25. 6, a ruling will be handed down from the Second Circuit in January 26 at the earliest, likely March or April though. That's the kick in the nuts, guys. That's the bit that I don't like. If this thing does go the way it now looks like it might go, we might not have absolutely full clarity on this until March 2026. Is that what he said? March or April 26. Another year. It's hard to be optimistic on that, isn't it? The optimistic side is I don't think this will impact the bull run all the way. I think it might stifle it a little bit. I don't know how much it will. I think personally probably a negligible amount of stifling. If you think that prices haven't tumbled after this, if you think that prices never really rallied ever since the lawsuit, we've had a few peaks and a few perks, and last year when the original ruling came out, we saw that 80-cent mark, then it quickly came down again. We hit 65 this week, and it's quickly come down again. But I think the predominant side of this lawsuit is still priced in. I think it's been priced in since they first did it and crashed us all the way down to 33 cents. I think the market is waiting to explode when this is over, and it may delay the explosion, but I think this is all now priced in. If anyone smart is involved in this, and the institutions understand the law, they are smart, this doesn't really affect the price of XRP. The only thing it affects is whether or not retail investors with a lack of knowledge decide to sell and panic or decide not to buy. That's the only real thing. And deep down, me and you with a couple of $1,000 here and there are not what will drive this price where we want it to go. So I'm not overly disheartened by it, but there's no two ways. I was more positive than I am this morning, yesterday morning. But I did expect the appeal. So moving through, where are we here? We have Barry C. If you all know the great Barry C., friend of mine, Barry, I like him a lot. He's just back on social media now. This is his take on it. Defying all logic, the SEC Gov has filed a notice of appeal of Judge Torres' ruling. In my opinion, this is a massive failure of the SEC and will put Gary Gensler directly in the crosshairs if Trump is elected president. It shows that the SEC doesn't operate in a professional way or operate from a place of protecting the US investor. The SEC and Gensler are more interested, I think that should have said, in a gotcha victory and protecting Gensler's own ass than supporting blockchain innovation in the US. Absolutely agree. The bigger questions, however, are, will this affect XRP in the upcoming bull run? No. Will XRP still have explosive price action in the next few months? Yes. Understand, this bull run is happening regardless of what the SEC does, and XRP will reach new all-time highs regardless of what the SEC does. So a bit of positivity for you there. I do like this guy. I do like what he says on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. He has a channel here on YouTube as well. Give him a follow, give him a subscribe. That's Barry C, everyone. If you need a little bit of optimism in the morning, he's your go-to guy. Moving on, So this one is from before this happened, actually, from our good friend Johnny Deaton. Probably done more for this community than anyone else, I would say. And this was actually a few days ago before they did the appeal. And it's just interesting how he predicted it perfectly. So again, to show you this wasn't a major surprise. As someone who knows the Ripple case very well, considering I was an active litigant for over 2.5 years, and considering Judge Torres cited my amicus brief and the 3,800 XRP holder affidavits I submitted, as well as my efforts as amicus counsel in the Libra case, see footnote 16, let me comment. In the Ripple case, Judge Torres did not apply all 3 factors of the Howey test. Brackets, some people describe the Howey test as a 4-factor test because the third factor has 2 prongs. I don't believe an appellate court will rule Judge Torres was in error in applying the third prong. Judge Torres made her ruling very fact-specific. The SEC did not rely on any expert testimony related to XRP holders, brackets, it was excluded anyway, but the judge did rely, however, on the XRP holder affidavits I submitted. An appellate court could say, just as Judge Torres acknowledged, there could be a scenario where secondary sales could qualify as investment contracts because the facts meet all the Howey factors. But in the Ripple XRP case, the facts presented just don't satisfy it. They just don't. Thus, the case gets affirmed on appeal, but it doesn't prevent the SEC from arguing secondary sales constitute investment contracts in other cases. Finally, Judge Torres ruled secondary sales on exchanges did not satisfy the third prong of Howey, and since all Howey factors must be satisfied, there was no need for her to apply the second prong, the common enterprise prong. So she didn't rule that there was no common enterprise. There was no need for her to apply that one because it was irrelevant, because it was already ruled against one of the other Howey tests, and therefore this one wasn't needed. So the common enterprise factor was, in my opinion, the weakest part of the SEC's case against Ripple. Thus, even if the Second Circuit ruled Judge Torres erred in applying the third prong, the SEC doesn't win the case. The case would go back to Judge Torres for her to apply the common enterprise prong, and she would likely rule that the SEC didn't establish a common enterprise. If that happened, the SEC would lose again in capital letters and then have to appeal all over. It makes no sense to appeal this ruling. But wait for it, he goes on. If Judge Torres did rule against Ripple, Ripple could then appeal. It makes no sense and would be a total waste of taxpayer money to appeal this decision, which is why someone like Gary Gensler might just appeal. How right did he get that? That was 3 or 4 days ago. How right did he get that? Crazy, crazy, crazy world we live in where these people are allowed to act on whatever is driving them to our deficit when they're supposed to be here to protect. I say our. They are there to my detriment because the price of XRP has gone down because of their actions. They're not here to protect me. I'm not a US citizen. So what they actually do is irrelevant to me, or let's say I'm irrelevant to them. The fact that they damage billions of people, millions of people at least around the world, does not bother them whatsoever. It seems that the fact that they damage millions, hundreds of thousands, millions of people in the US doesn't bother them either. But that's the bit where they're going against their remit because they're supposed to be there to protect you guys in the US. Moving on. So, US Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC protects investors, maintains fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and facilitates capital information. Really? Really? That's what they say about themselves. That's what they're supposed to stand for. Finally, a post from me. This was just my thoughts on the matter, so I stuck this out there. Okay, so let's be frank. The SecGov's decision to appeal the XRP Ripple case primarily stems from its unquenchable thirst for revenge, rather than its desire to clarify regulatory standards for cryptocurrencies and for the greater good of those citizens it is pretending to protect. Sorry, but that's just the way most of us see it. And that's true, I think, of all of us. However, whilst this is a short-term setback, it can actually lead to greater regulatory clarity and stability for the crypto market overall. The initial ruling highlighted that XRP is not a security when sold on exchanges, this is still the case. Oh, I misspelled there, but anything else is just noise. The sex appeal signals an ongoing commitment to enforce regulations with an iron fist and to hell with anyone who gets in their way. But this process could ultimately create a more robust legal framework that benefits everyone, whether that's their personal goal or not. I don't agree with what they're doing or how they're doing it, and this is all temporary and may end up benefiting us all. Although it could be argued that the US will lose vital ground in the crypto sector against overseas competitors. You have to remember, guys, whilst all this is happening in the US, the competitors overseas are not being hit with this. They don't have this big question mark over where they stand, what they can do. There's still some question marks out there. The crypto world is new. Not all the laws are in place yet, but they don't fear that they might be retrospectively sued in 5 years' time in Europe. There are enough groundwork indicators, if you like, ground rules, suggestions of rules that they can move forward with confidence that what they are doing today will not result in being sued by some kind of disgruntled regulator in the future. And that means that a lot of these innovative companies, Ripple is a great example of this, will be setting up shop outside of the US, and they may never come back. Now, I'm British. I shouldn't really care about the US, but I like the fact that the US is the leader when it comes to these things because I think it's great for the global economy. I've made lots and lots of money for myself and my clients over the years through backing these guys in Silicon Valley. And I find it infuriating that some of these will move somewhere else, quite possibly to the detriment of the sector on the whole as well. The greatest minds are in Silicon Valley, no two ways about it. The most experienced people, the best people for the job are in Silicon Valley. And if they've got families there and don't want to move to Germany, Ireland, Mexico, Canada, wherever on earth they may go, anywhere except the US is a better place than the US right now. That could be detrimental to the whole sector. And I don't get why the SEC are so adamant about ruining this for everybody, but that seems to be the way they're going. Anyway, go on. In the long run, however, there will have to be dialogue between regulators and the industry. There just will, leading to better understanding and compliance. That part is inevitable. And whilst we're all pissed that it may stifle the bull run, and I did put in brackets, although I personally feel any impact will be negligible, or at least the impact will be not as bad as it could have been, because most people now understand that this is still, for XRP itself, this is done. So go back. Whilst we're all pissed that this may stifle the bull run, accelerating those channels of communication and full legal clarity is imperative in the grander scheme. So the sooner the better in my book. And I do mean that, by the way, guys. I'm annoyed like you are that this has happened now. I find it an incredible coincidence it's happened just before we're about to see this thing go berserk. But in the same respect, from here to $10 might be hindered. From here to $1,000 might be accelerated. And I'm not one of them guys going to tell you it's going to be $1,000 anytime soon, but I use the number out of just the top of my head. Here to $100 could be accelerated. So is that for the greater good? Potentially. It depends where you are. If you're a guy with a few thousand XRP, you're not buying your dream home next year now, but you might get that dream home sooner because the price of XRP has accelerated between here and $100, although it's decelerated between here and 10. I hope that makes sense, but it should make sense. If the time horizon was 10 years from here to $100, it now might be 7. But if the time horizon was 1 year from here to $10, it now might be 2 or 3 years. That's the downside. In fact, we'll probably go into another bear market, so it now might be 5 years, right? But that still brings forward the grander scheme $100 price, because we need these channels. There was never going to be a world where cryptocurrency providers could run around unregulated. Absolutely. There was always going to be a need for someone to regulate them. At the moment, there's still argument about who that ought to be. Hopefully not the SEC, but in the same respect, there was always going to need to be somebody regulating them somewhere. Big bank, custodial services, big utility can't come until there's regulation. They're not allowed. You know, and I don't just mean legally, but I mean internal procedures as well. They're not allowed to do these things until the framework is in place, and the framework's not in place yet. I go on and say the crypto space thrives on innovation and adaptability, and the outcome will likely pave the way. So the outcome of this will likely pave the way for clearer guidelines that will enhance investor confidence and true market growth. And I put there, and not just retail confidence, this also opens the door to utility sooner than expected too. So that's going back to what I'm saying. This may stagger, it may stifle this bull run a little bit from a retail point of view, which would have seen the price of XRP go from 50 cents to maybe $5, maybe $3. I don't know, maybe a new all-time high at $4 or $5. But it will accelerate the utility. And we're all in XRP for utility. We all know the story. We've all seen what the utility use case of XRP is. That's why we buy it. So most of us were not in for this retail rally. Some were. Some have probably accumulated enough that they were going to get out in 6 months' time with a very handsome amount of money and live the rest of their days in happiness with $2 or $3 million in the bank. I sympathise for those guys. Some were the other way around. All they wanted was their money back because they've been down for the last 4 years. I sympathise with those guys. But the grand plan for XRP, if anything, will be better for this. We will achieve that utility goal sooner, even though I would have loved to have seen a $10 XRP, sold 50% of my portfolio into RLUSD if it's launched by a year from now. Sat there, waited out the peak, let the markets crash around me, buy back in with that 50% and treble my holdings, double my holdings, whatever the price, depends on the price movements. That was my plan. That part of my plan may have been slowed. The grand scheme plan of getting to a portfolio of XRP that's now worth $50, $60, $70, I think has been brought forward. So it's not all bad news, guys. It just depends on where you are. Going back to what I've always said, if you've only invested what you could afford to not only lose, but what you could afford to not need for the near future, this is a good thing for you. Again, we all wanted that moment where we could turn around and tell our friends and family, I told you so, 6 months from now, right? We might have to wait a little bit longer. I still think we can tell them I told you so, just maybe not with quite as much vigor. This might stunt the growth cycle a bit this time. Remember, we still saw XRP hit nearly $2 last time. That could happen again. $2 would be a great day for me. You know, I've accumulated a lot of XRP in between. I think I started buying in about April 2022. I started moving back, and I'd sold all my holdings and all my crypto at the almost got the peak of the bull run right. Actually, not because I'm wonderful and better trader than everyone else. Look as much as judgment. I just looked at it. I thought I'm happy with my profits. I sold, and then the world came tumbling down around me, and I was very pleased with myself. This time round, I started buying in about April 22, just after the FTX thing and everything really started tumbling off. So I managed to dollar cost average into all my bags at very, very attractive prices. So a $5 XRP would have made me a very happy boy, but a $2 XRP makes me a happy boy. I've not got the figures on my average buying because I bought a little bit more the other week. I think it's about the 50-cent mark now, give or take. So I'm still in profit at the moment. I've bought over different exchanges over the years, and I don't keep as sort of detailed accounts as I probably should do because it doesn't really matter to me. You know, I'm not going to sell this until it's in major profit, be that in 1 year, 5 years, or 15 years' time. That's what this is for. But in the same respect, I would like a $2 XRP. I would love a $5 XRP. I'd love a $50 XRP in the next 12 months. I think more than anything, this is just going to throw an extra line of jitters in there. So some of the retail guys that would have flung $1,000 into XRP might send it to Sol now. I don't think this is the difference between every XRP holder selling because most of us are educated on what we hold. You know, that is our slogan, know what you hold, right? Most of us do. And I don't think most of us will let this affect our judgment. It will piss a few of us off. Like I say, for those of you that have held since the last peak and are in negative territory, I sympathise a little bit, but don't let this get you down. You're a step further away from a quick get out you're a step closer to a big, big sale. So let's keep with it, guys. Listen, that's me. I've been yapping on for a good half an hour or more now. I know I'm trying to keep it to 15, 20 minutes. So I apologize and thank you for sticking with me. If you like what I said, guys, please do click that like button, click that subscribe button, share me on social media, drop me a comment. If you think I've said things right, drop me a comment. If you think I've said them wrong, drop me a comment. I'm always grateful for the comments to have a chat with you. I think you're probably aware now the YouTube algorithm likes all those sort of things. So the more interaction I get in any way or form is good for the channel. And if you think I've been of any help, I would really appreciate the help back by dropping me a comment or a like or a subscription. So thank you very much in advance for that. Guys, I'm going to leave you with it. My overwhelming message today is a bit of a kick in the nuts, but don't let it get you down. It's a step closer to where we need to be. They're not going to win this. They're absolutely not going to win this. I don't think their end game is to win this. I think they know they're not going to win it. I think their end game is to delay things. There's a couple of schools of thought out there. Most think it's because they're spoiled brats and want to ruin the party for everyone. Some people think it's because they know the world isn't ready and they think it's their job to stifle these markets until the world is ready. I get the logic behind that argument. I'm not sure I agree with it myself. I certainly believe that cryptocurrency was created by the powers that be. I don't think it was a Japanese bloke called Satoshi Nakamoto. I think we all are aware now it was most likely done by the powers that be to drive investor money without being seen to be pulling the strings. Right? They're the puppet masters without being seen. I think they want us in crypto, which means any setback between now and then is as pre-planned as crypto was in the first place, in my mind. So I'm not disheartened at all. I'm a bit annoyed. I fancied a baller as well. I could have bought myself a new bike or something. New Harley or something like that off a bit of pocket change. Would have been nice. But what will come will come. You know, going back to Barry C, he's still absolutely adamant it's coming anyway. Many people are. I don't see any reason why logically, mathematically, this ought to stop XRP from enjoying a bubble. I do see how emotionally some investors may steer clear, some investors may cash in, which could stifle a bubble. So we'll see what comes, guys. But in the grand scheme of things, I think this brings us a step closer to full regulation, full understanding globally on where we need to be. This regulation has to come. So every day that passes is a step closer. I can't tell you exactly when the day will be that we see the utility run kick in. I suspect it won't be on the same cyclical cycle that crypto has always moved on. It doesn't make sense to me that they'd open the floodgates just before what was going to be a bull market anyway. I think they'll probably use the next bear market to be loading up on holdings and loading up on infrastructure, so that they're ready to roll. And one day we'll just see it. The switch will be flipped, as they like to say. Guys, I'm going to go. I've been yapping on for too long, nearly 40 minutes now. Once again, thanks very much for your time today. I really do appreciate it. Click a like, click a subscribe. Overly appreciated. And I'll speak to you all soon. Have a great week, guys. Thanks very much. Nick.